Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to our webinar, How Fleets Are Using Cameras to Manage Risk Claims and Insurance. We have a really special webinar for y'all. We're very excited. We got some great panelists with us. Joining me will be Chris Galt. She's also on the GPS Insight team. We have Marcus Raspberry, who is with Amerisure. And then we have Michael Curis, who's with Keystone. And also joining us later in the webinar will be John Altendahl, who's also part of our GPS Insight team. We're super excited again to have you all with us, to have our panelists with us today. Just some ground rules before we start our webinar. Feel free to ask questions. We are planning to do a question and answer segment at the end, so don't feel like we're ignoring you. We're saving the best part for last, which is getting to your answers. And there may be a chance, just for sake of time, we don't get to all of our questions. In the event that happens, just know the GPS Insight team is planning on emailing you personally. We're not ignoring you. So super great to have everybody here. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Chris.
Thank you for that intro, Miles. Today's discussion focuses on the growing role of camera technology in fleet safety and risk management. Look, from my perspective in the insurance industry, successful fleet reduction requires a partnership between three stakeholders: our fleets, our technology partners, and two experts we have here today, our insurers. And when those three groups can work together, the results can be significant. Joining us today are two industry experts who operate at that intersection every day: Marcus Raspberry from Amerisure and Michael Curis from Keystone. While some driver pushback still exists, camera adoption is increasingly becoming table stakes in fleet safety programs. Organizations implementing this technology are seeing measurable benefits, including fewer risk events, faster claims resolution, improved driver coaching, and a stronger protection overall. But most importantly, cameras provide context that helps organizations move beyond assumptions and make decisions based upon facts. To help us better understand these trends and what it means for our fleets today, I'm going to introduce you to our guests. Marcus Raspberry joins us from Amerisure Insurance, a 100-year-old company. He's a risk manager for the North and the West, and also the Autoline business manager for fleet programs for the Fleet Management Department. And also Michael Curis from Keystone, which is the 25th largest broker in the United States, with over 400 agencies owned and network. He is the vice president of fleet transportation and risk. Thank you for joining me today, gentlemen. Let's get right into this. So, Marcus, you spent more than 20 years working in the industry and you've seen fleet safety evolve significantly. From your perspective, which risky driving behaviors are most effectively addressed through this camera adoption and these coaching programs?
So thank you so much for having me, Chris. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk on this particular subject that's very near and dear to my heart. And to answer your question, when it comes to the fleet camera adoption, the biggest thing that we like to see is not only picking out the right cameras that may be forward facing or driver facing, but having the management accountability program that goes behind the cameras that allows management to see what drivers are seeing out on the road. We want to make sure that number one, the drivers are informed of why the cameras are in the vehicles and what the cameras will be doing. We find out that fleets that have cameras but uninform the drivers about why the cameras in the vehicles can go south really fast. So we want to make sure that we are educating the drivers that the cameras become a driver's assistant, not something that's punitive or something that we would like to see go against the driver. We don't want that to happen. We want to see it as an opportunity to coach the driver and also be able to train the driver as well on deficiencies that they may be having. It can also help them with navigating intersections. It can also help from a claims perspective and being able to navigate claim issues that come about for those fleets that don't have cameras. So we really are pushing cameras. We really want to see telematics in vehicles, and we want to make sure that people understand why they're there and how they should be used at all times.
I want to follow up to that question, which is, are there any risk behaviors that are seeing just prevalent across all fleets?
Yes, that's a great question, Chris, because the biggest culprit that we see is distracted driving is number one. Number two, speeding. is the second thing that we see more often than not. But we like to use these particular technology devices to look at not only speeding, but hard braking, hard cornering, hard acceleration, idling. These are things that all fleets should be looking at all times, and with this technology, they'll be able to do so.
I appreciate that. I also like to think about what you said earlier, which is data without action is truly negligent. So it's not just enough to have the hardware installed, you have to actually be doing something with it. I'm going to do a follow-up on that. And Michael, I mean, your team works very directly with the fleets during the implementation process. Are you seeing any other, difference in risky behaviors alongside what Marcus mentioned? And once these behaviors are identified, how quickly can things actually change?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So, I mean, I agree with Marcus on everything that he said. Distracted driving for us too, for the people that we review this for on their behalf, is definitely the number one thing. But obviously, you have to have driver-facing cameras for that as well. Not everybody has that. Some people just have the forward-facing, so it just depends. Um, but where we add an extra layer, it doesn't matter what you have or what alerts are coming up. It's what you're doing with that information. There was a point in time where carriers might have asked you, did you have telematics? And that was a checkbox on the supplement. But now it's what are you doing with it? How are you carrying that information out? How are you disseminating that amongst all your drivers so that doesn't happen again? And that's where we can really help our clients. We have few individuals that actually log into their system. They go through all the alerts. They look at all the camera footage. They coach the driver through the system if they can. And then they're giving weekly reports to the people in charge there to show who they talked to, what they talked to them about, show them all the speedings that they had throughout the week, the unsafe driving events, and all that stuff. And what it does, people wear a lot of hats in their business. This kind of takes that off their plate a little bit. And being that we're putting all this information into one email once a week, it's kind of being put right in front of them. So we're doing a lot of the legwork for them. We can't hire, we can't fire, we can't discipline. That's where we're relying on them to do those things, but we're just trying to help them get there.
That's a big safety difference maker at Keystone. You guys almost become like an extension, like their safety director, their co-pilot in risk. And I just want to acknowledge that's a really special thing that Keystone offers for their customers and their clients. So one of the most overlooked benefits of camera technology is its role in claims management. Cameras not only help identify risky behaviors, they can also accelerate the claims process and more often than not, exonerate our drivers. I'm going to turn this one to you, Marcus. Where have you seen cameras create the greatest impact in claims resolution? And do you have any cases from the past couple years to back this up?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. Because our claims team they love the camera footage. Because without cameras being in the vehicle, whether they're forward facing or driver facing, we it's one person's word against another person's word on the events that took place. With the cameras, they give us a storyline. They help us to mitigate and manage the claim outcomes because now we have footage to follow, and we can help manage that claim to the end point because we know exactly what happened. For instance, we have an example where we had one of our drivers, one of our insurers was backing out of a parking space, and they looked left, they looked right, began to back up, and next thing you know, a pickup truck came behind them in their blind spot, and they tapped the bumper and had a tennis ball size, dent in the back bumper of the vehicle. Our driver was only going 1 to 2 miles per hour. But next thing you know, we got a demand from that vehicle's insurance saying that they want $500,000 for a simple, dent in the back bumper. Well, we had forward-facing cameras in our insurance vehicle and driver-facing camera, and that driver-facing camera was able to go out the back window of the pickup truck and able to see everything that happened. We sent the video over to the plaintiff's attorney. They looked at it and said, you know what, this please pay for the damages to the vehicle, which ended up being $500. So from that vantage point, we went from $500,000 to just repairing the dent of $500 is a huge difference. Without the camera footage, we probably would have paid more than $500, right? But because of the camera footage, the attorney was like, just pay for the vehicle and we should be good to go from there. So just keep that in mind that cameras, they help us mitigate claims even when the driver is at fault. We know how to manage the claim and how much to put in reserves and things of that nature based upon what occurred because we have the camera footage. So we love cameras. Cameras help even when the person may be wrong.
I could only imagine you reporting that back to the insurer themselves and the excitement, the relief that they would feel how installing technology actually maybe help them save hundreds of thousands of dollars. But great work on your team to get that over the line, Marcus. So I love that story. And Michael, you've seen a lot of things on your time too. Do you have any cases where you've seen an exoneration or a camera helped people settle quicker?
Yeah, so we have a lot of good claim stories when it comes to telematics and camera footage, but I wanted to take this one a little bit different and talk about a citation actually. So we had a driver that got pulled over for speeding. He had a corrective lens restriction on his license. Now he obviously got the speeding violation, but the other violation he got was for not having his corrective lenses on when the officer came to speak with him. When we actually look back at the video, because one thing that we always tell all of our insureds, if something's wrong, you have to say something. Of course, we're reviewing stuff for you and everything like that. But like in this instance, unless you tell us, we really won't know. So that also empowers the drivers to know that we're kind of there to help them. And, that we're looking at the footage and they're okay with that because once again, we're there to help them in the long run. So when we looked at the footage, the guy had his glasses on for the entire run. Once he got pulled over and put the truck in park is when he took his glasses off. And the reason he took them off was to get the paperwork to be able to show the police officer. So he did say that to the police officer on the roadside. It didn't matter. He still wrote him up. We were able to take all that information. He fought that actually at a magistrate and got it taken, got that thrown out. And then in turn, we were able to do what's called a data queue through the FMCSA and get it removed from a CSA score.
Let me follow up with that. Um, so you actually worked with his team and the FMCSA to get it removed from his CSA score?
Correct. And that's, a benefit to the driver, a benefit to the company on many levels. When you're talking about insurance and underwriting, they're looking at those types of scores to see what type of risk you are as a company. So keeping that clean for a violation they shouldn't have got is important and it keeps them attractive to the marketplace. Aside from that, compliance, we don't want the FMCSA on our backs if we don't need to. So looking at that report, being able to use telematics to exonerate yourself and actually get out of some of the citations that you shouldn't have to begin with, it's a very important piece of this whole program.
I think it's to really kind of double click into that. What we're finding with our fleets is yes, it's incredibly important for risky and revising risky behaviors and addressing them. But if you improve your CSA scores, you become much more attractive as a fleet. So operationally, telematics becomes an incredible asset to a business as well, alongside a great safety and risk mitigation tool.
Yeah, and if I could just add one more thing to that, one thing that we do that we feel is a little unique from other brokers is we put together a narrative to basically spotlight the client in the best way possible. Part of that is always telematics data. They have all the data, there's all this information, but what are we doing with it? If we could show a true story that shows a downward trend with anybody, they were here and now they're much better over this course of time, and tell the story of how that happened through telematics, through coaching, through driver training, etc. To me, put yourself in that underwriter's shoes. It tells a much different story than just looking at cab reports and CSA scores and MVRs.
I could not agree more. Now let's address a question that every fleet asks us. Will cameras lower my insurance premiums? I'm sorry, guys. Look, we're all smart enough not to promise a direct answer, but it is fair. So, Michael, I'm going to ask you first. When our customers ask us that question, like, how would you respond? Does camera adoption help influence underwriting decisions, renewal discussions? Give us some parameters of how we can respond to our fleets.
Well, you said something important there. Does it influence underwriting decisions? And I would say yes. It's not about, once again, just you have it, but what are we doing with it? Now, to say you're going to save money, you can't say that because we don't know where the market's at. All these natural disasters that happen, you can't see that kind of stuff coming. There's a lot of things that are left out of our control and certainly out of our clients' control, but there's a lot of things that are left in their control. We talked about some of these roadside scores and whatnot. But there's a way to position yourself in the marketplace to look as attractive as you can to that marketplace so that you can get the best rates with that specific insurance carrier. And that's basically where I could say that we can get you with your buy-in. We have the tools and the efforts to be able to help you get there. Obviously, there is going to be some effort on their part to get there as well. But if they're willing to do it, we can get you there. To say that we'll actually save you money, it's really hard for us to say that because we just don't know where the market's going to be.
I appreciate those guidelines as a risk partner or a vendor per se. We never promise that, but helping our customers understand where you're coming from is appreciative. And, Marcus, then I would ask you from an insurance carrier perspective, are there advantages for fleets to adopt these technologies? Also, will they help lower your premiums? How are they going to impact lower insurance outcomes?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. I love the question, and I love Michael's answer on that. That was really good. Because of the fact that again, when it comes to lowering premiums, we want to see these technologies in place. And again, to reiterate what Michael said, we can't guarantee and say, yeah, if you do this, then X outcome is going to happen with your premium. We can't guarantee any of that. But what we can do is say by having these technologies in your vehicles that we want to be able to reduce the losses that occur in your vehicle. And from that, you can see lower activity on your claims. You can see lower frequency and severity issues. And that's ultimately what we want to have lower from an insurance perspective. And so we want to make sure that you have these technologies in place, but also that you're managing them. When you see the trends, when you see things happening, that you take a proactive stance and get ahead of it versus waiting for the accident to occur and then go back and figure out, oh, this guy, he's been trending with speeding, he's been trending with hard acceleration or distracted driving. So we don't want to use these technologies for a reactive stance. We want to use them as a proactive stance to be able to possibly retrain drivers, to be able to understand the driver concerns with what he or she is seeing on the road, and then also to make sure that the technology is user friendly, so that they'll be able to utilize the technology in a way that it will reduce accidents and incidents from occurring. So that's what we like to see as far as fleets is concerned, telematics, cameras, any type of technology that can assist the driver. We would like to see it in those vehicles to reduce losses at the end of the day.
I think part of the secret sauce of Amerisure and your team is that you are invested with your drivers and with your fleets. You said something very significant that is a shift in the market, which is proactivity. Proactivity, use of data versus being responsive. And I give credit to you guys because I've seen it happen with our fleets directly, this triangulation of actually the insurer knowing what the fleet is doing and the fleet being knowledgeable enough or empowered enough to do the right things with your guidance. So thank you for your support and your guidance to our fleets on that. I have one last question for you both. It's a challenging risk environment. So this is a two-part question. Michael, I'm going to ask you first. Do you think camera technology will become standard across all lines of business? Secondly, for our fleet operators preparing for their upcoming insurance renewals, what advice can you offer them?
That's a great question. And the answer to the first part is not if, but when it happens with all carriers. It's happening more and more. There's aggregators out there that essentially, if you're going to be a part of their insurance company, they're going to ask you to link your telematics system, whatever system it is, to them so that they can basically kind of see what type of risk you are. And if you think about it from that standpoint, um, if we get there where every carrier is going to be doing that, you're going to want to be as best in class as you can be because now the carrier is able to see what your behaviors are. Um, a lot of people have it now. I think they don't utilize it to the maximum capability. If you start that now and put that process in place, the culture changes and then just part of the daily routine. So if you do that now, it'll get you ready for when it's here. And then the second part of what's going to actually prepare us to get ready for submission for renewal This is something that we do a lot of with our customers. And like I said, it's not a one size fits all because everything makes a customer look more attractive to that marketplace than somebody else. But I really try to get in deep with the telematics data and see if I was an underwriter, what I would like to see on this information. So, things like I put them together recently where the driver score went from an average, and this was a GPS customer, GPS Insight customer. They went from an average from an 850 to a 950 over a 3 month period. And that was from us actually reviewing it on their behalf, coaching the drivers, getting involved with them, training, whatnot. The other thing that's really interesting, and this is like burned in my brain because I've actually talked about this so many different times, is that it's the same process. So it's three months, and it showed that there was 3,000 hours spent on the road, and only 11 minutes of that was spent speeding, and the percentage was like 0.01%. So once again, put yourself in the underwriter's shoes and think about that looks excellent to me, and that's not fluff. That's true data. So that's really what's going to separate you from the rest of the submissions that that underwriter has on their desk. And like I said, being with Keystone, we help our customers put that together. You guys have the tools to do it with telematics. It's about taking that information out and telling the story.
That's an exceptional report card that I would be proud to show an underwriter of the success of a fleet because of your program. Marcus, I'm gonna ask you that same question. Are cameras going to become table stakes? And how do we prepare our fleets for the upcoming renewals?
Yep. So I'm going to back up a little bit, Chris. That's an excellent question because the adoption of cameras and telematics, let's say 5 years ago, a lot of fleets were against it. And you even had employees that say, if you put that in my vehicle, I'm going to quit. Well, fast forward today, if an employee says that, they're going to go to the company that already has cameras and telematics in the vehicles because a lot of our insurers are adopting cameras and telematics. And we found out through studies and statistics that telematics, at least by having telematics in the vehicle, it stops incidents at 50% in that first year, just by the employee knowing that telematics is in the vehicle, which is huge. And so for companies that are still kind of on the fence on to whether they should have cameras or telematics, I think that they have to kind of get on the ball because, as Michael said, most companies and insurance companies are adopting the methodology that you should have some type of telematics or a camera program in your vehicle, some type of technology in your vehicle that can allow the insurance companies to see how you're driving, your behaviors, what are you doing with regards to it, and managing that program. I keep throwing out the management accountability because you have to manage the program because if not, if something were to go wrong, someone's going to find out that you wasn't managing the program like it should be managed. So we want to make sure that, when adopting this technology, that you have a good management accountability program, that you are looking at training and retraining drivers, and then make it user friendly, make it easy. Set up your accounts to where you're able to see what's actually going on and really can see what drivers you need to hone in on to make sure that they understand what's happening while they're driving the vehicle in certain areas, or understanding that this tool is not a punitive tool, but it's a tool that should be used to assist the driver, assist them in their driving behaviors, assist them when recognizing hazards, and not something that, hey, I'm going to get in trouble if I do something wrong. So that's what the consensus should be when we educate our accounts. That's what we like to do. I think Michael can concur with this. When talking to our insurers, we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with how the technology is being used. So there's no issues at the end of the day if something were to go wrong.
Marcus, Michael, you are fleet safety and risk evangelists. I can't thank you enough for the discussion today. I could talk all day to you guys about this incredibly important topic. This discussion really reinforces that cameras become far more than a safety tool. They become a risk management, a claims management, an insurance management tool. And when fleets effectively use this video data, they close the visibility gap. They strengthen their overall position with their insurance partners. We take a position at GPS Insight. We're not simply installing cameras. We need to help our fleets understand the data, use it to drive meaningful change, and long-term success depends on this collaboration amongst our fleets, our technology partners, and our insurance partners like Keystone and Amerisure. With that foundation in place, I turn it over to you, Miles and John, to provide a brief overview of the product's capabilities and how organizations can put these strategies into place today.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Marcus. We really appreciate the insights y'all were able to share with us. We're going to kind of pivot a little bit and actually talk specifically about products. So we've already been breaking down the value that dash camera solutions have to offer. So we're going to actually bring in our the product marketing manager here at GPS Insight. His name's John Altendal. John, thanks for being with us today on our webinar.
Hey, Miles, thanks for having me.
Hey John, like it was already previously discussed, I think it would really help, and people are asking questions specifically about the dash cameras and the solutions and the benefits that they have to offer. Um, what can you tell us about the core features that the dash cameras offer from GPS Insight?
Yeah, sure thing. So I first want to start out by saying we offer a variety of different camera options here at GPS Insight, a couple different camera actual pieces of hardware, and a couple options as far as like the data plans that go along with them. So we try to be, I guess, all encompassing for organizations in accomplishing their goals. We typically have a camera plan that's going to meet your needs. So, if you are just looking to capture basic footage on the road of certain driver events, even our most basic camera offering that we have is going to capture those AI driver incident events both on the road and in the cab. So, what that means is safety managers, fleet managers, they're not diving into hours of footage trying to find a specific incident. We have a very easy way to actually surface certain driver behavior incidences directly in our portal and just have those clips readily available for those fleet managers, those safety managers. So even our most basic camera offering, it's going to capture, harsh braking events, close follow events, even some sort of distracted driving events as well. And it's actually going to take those clips, surface them in the portal for a manager to review. So if you're looking for that sort of option, we certainly have it. And then as we get into the more advanced options of our cameras, that's when we actually offer a more comprehensive driver coaching platform along with the cameras, right? So, being able to actually develop a plan with the driver, sending them the actual footage for the driver to review and actually sign off on it, make sure they understand that the incident took place, and really have them take accountability, I guess, for the action that they took and acknowledge that it happened and document this whole coaching and safety process for these organizations. In addition to the coaching, that more advanced platform that's also going to keep track of driver scores. Not only do those driver scores reflect negative incidences, but also positive incidences as well. So, maybe a driver slams on their brakes because a ball rolls into the street and the kid's running after it. Instead of the camera highlighting it as a negative event for that harsh braking incident, a manager can go in, see, okay, my driver actually took the right action by slamming on the brakes and prevented, an incident with a pedestrian, that sort of thing. So again, we have a variety of different plans. It's really what our customers, what organizations are looking to get out of that camera. Yes, we can provide the footage, protect your vehicles and your drivers in case of an incident, but we also have the solutions to help you really stand up a full driver coaching and safety program at your organization as well.
Oh, John, that's great, and it kind of leads into another question, another point that I think we should be making in regards to dash cameras is risks and claims workflow. You mentioned the portal a lot. Just for the folks watching at home, who can access that portal footage? Just from maybe like a security means, but also if you wouldn't mind just kind of diving a little bit deeper into the workflows and how that system would look for a fleet manager or just for a driver.
Sure thing. So, a lot of the permissions within the portal itself, it is permissions based, right? So you can set up users as drivers. They're not going to have the same driver scoring or driver performance data available to them as opposed to maybe someone like a fleet manager or a safety manager or some sort of fleet admin. So you can set up roles, you can set up permissions within the platform, and then users with certain levels of permissions, let's say an admin type permission, those would be the ones that actually are able to view and access the driver score data and the driver performance data of everyone in the fleet. So we know some customers, they're sensitive about that sort of thing. So we do try to lock down that information as much as possible and make it only available to, those admins that need to see that full information. Now, drivers, yes, they are going to be able to see their own driver score, but they might not be able to see some of the other drivers within their fleet scores as well. Uh, when it comes to claims management, safety management, I'm a little less familiar on that side of things, but I would say, for an organization, we have the reporting in place to really track overall fleet performance and driver safety performance over time. What we have heard and what our friends have discussed earlier, right, is being able to provide that information to their insurance, right? To show that, hey, we have a safety program in place. We have seen a change, right, an improvement in our driver behavior over time, and that helps to just build a case for these organizations with their insurance provider to show, hey, we take safety seriously.
Digging a little bit deeper into that, like operational benefits. If I'm a fleet manager, you had mentioned, yeah, like coaching alerts and paying attention to specific needs of drivers and being able to coach and work with them on that. Can you walk me through a little bit about that? And then also maybe how this can help me if I were a fleet manager operate a little bit more efficiently. What are some other key benefits that um, would really help me understand the value of installing dash cameras into our vehicles?
Absolutely. Well, obviously the most apparent benefit of dash cams, right, is comes from a driver's safety perspective, protecting your drivers in the case of an accident, making sure that they're driving safely on the road. But I guess in terms of operational, like efficiency, harsh driving habits, speeding, things like that, that also does affect the performance of the vehicle, right? It increases fuel usage, makes vehicles less efficient. Harsh driving habits also have greater wear and tear on the vehicle. So, dash cams do provide another way to be able to monitor not only driver behavior from a safety perspective, but also from that more vehicle maintenance and wear and tear perspective, right? So it doesn't always have to be a critical incident that you need to intervene your drivers on. It could be something simply as, hey, we noticed that you're speeding a lot or you're slamming on the brakes, right? We want to take care of our vehicles. This provides just another layer of visibility into that driver behavior for fleet managers to make sure that their drivers are driving efficiently, they're driving safely, they're not speeding, they're not wasting gas unnecessarily. So I think in that regard, cameras add just another great level of visibility into the actual performance of the fleet and the drivers and their efficiencies.
Oh, no, that's awesome, John. That's kind of hit like three birds with one stone. I mean, we all can relate. Insurance premiums are on the rise. Gas prices are starting to climb up a little bit right now at the time of this webinar. And so, yeah, just being able to be a little bit of preventative, forward thinking with a dash camera sounds like we could solve a lot of problems. That's awesome. Good,
Exactly.
super good to hear. Um, and to kind of add the cherry on top to everything you've been saying, John, we recently had a customer testimonial from a fleet that we provide solutions for. They're KCP. They're based out of Iowa. One of their drivers, her name is Nicole. I'll call her out by name. We have an awesome video featured that features her and her performance and her story. When their fleet installed dash cameras, she's at the bottom of the list in regards to her score, her safety, just because that was the name of the game at the time for them, right? It's
Mhm.
let's get the job done fast. Let's get to the next one. They provide gravel installs, like driving big old dump trucks from one site to the next and just going, going, going. So for their fleet, it's kind of like, hey, we just need to be pedal to the metal. But the fleet managers had recognized this is not safe. This is not smart, and it's costing us a lot and claims and all this stuff. So when the dash cameras were installed, the some of the drivers like Nicole weren't super excited about it. Um, but after a while, they started to recognize the benefits, and it was literally life-changing. One specific instance, Nicole was driving down the road at a four-way stop. A vehicle had pulled out in front of her when it was, I'm sorry, it wasn't a four-way stop. It was a, she had the right of way, and the vehicles that were crossing the intersection needed to stop. They had the stop sign. One vehicle didn't stop, just kept going, cut right in front of Nicole. She had a full load in the dump truck, and she was able to be forward thinking and recognize, hey, there's an accident about to happen, and she was able to apply the brakes fast enough, swerve out of the way fast enough, and safely enough without tipping the vehicle over to keep her and the other vehicle safe because that could have been potentially fatal with that
Mhm.
sort of accident. And it was in that moment that Nicole had recognized not only is this dash camera helping me, it's keeping other people safe because I am more aware. And that's just one of like 1,000 stories that we hear at GPS Insight from our customers. And John, thank you so much for your insight, for breaking down the camera solutions that GPS Insight has to offer. We really appreciate your wisdom and just your time. Thank you so much. With that, though, we're going to actually bring back Chris, Michael, and Marcus. We're going to break down some of your questions that you have asked during the webinar. And again, just as a friendly reminder, for the sake of time, we may or may not get to everybody's questions today. Please don't feel like we are ignoring you. We are going to answer as many as we can during the live webinar. And then if we don't get back to you, GPS Insight, someone from our team will send you an email with your answer. So I promise you will get your answer either immediately or later today. But with that, we'll go ahead and bring the team back and we'll jump right into it. So our first question is, what is the biggest challenge with using fleet cameras today? Getting them installed, getting people to use them, or getting drivers to accept them? Do we have a brave soul who wants to tackle that first question?
Yeah, I can tackle that question. When it comes to cameras today, I think that a lot of our fleets that don't use any type of technology are more apprehensive against using cameras or even telematics because they haven't used them before, or they may have heard different things with regards to how to use the cameras or how they've been used in a court case, or but maybe had a buddy that said, "Hey, these cameras are terrible. I'll never use them, or they're too expensive." So to overcome those challenges, I think number one, what we try to do from an insurance perspective is educate the company on, hey, this is how the camera should be used. When picking a telematics or camera provider, these are the questions you should be asking them. Really get familiar with the product lines and also with pricing to make sure that they have a budget for it. But more than anything else, make sure that it's used more so as of an education more than anything else, right? It's more so educating the account on how it's used, how it should be used, how to educate the drivers, how to create a driver training program to get everyone to buy in. Most companies, they like the cameras, but the employees may not like the cameras. So to overcome those challenges is to make sure that it's explained in such a way that employees feel comfortable with the product, what it does and doesn't do. Because I've seen it where cameras are thrown in vehicles, and then next thing you know, the employee is upset because no one told them the camera's going to be in the vehicles. They never educated on how they're going to be used. And then next thing you know, they're pulling cameras out of the vehicles because there's an uproar amongst the employee base. So we have to make sure that we're educating the drivers, we're making sure that they're comfortable with it, and that it's used as a tool to help them, not discipline them or used as a punitive device. So that's how we've been able to educate our accounts to make sure they're comfortable with it. and to make sure the process goes smooth from installation to customer service, right? Making sure that whatever vendor or company goes with it, they have those tools in place to make sure that the process goes smooth.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcus. Another question that came in is for smaller fleets without a dedicated safety manager, what's the best way to successfully roll out a camera program? Since Marcus grabbed the last one, Michael, you want to take this one?
Yeah, this is actually a good one for us because we obviously help our customers review the telematics data. So, yeah, of course, having the system is the first thing you have to do. But managing the system is probably the most important thing that you can do. I think a lot of these systems out there will try to sell you on, hey, you put this stuff in, it does everything itself. It's AI or whatever, it tells you everything you need to do, which is true to a point. With in-cab coaching and stuff like that, if I'm on my phone, it's going to tell me to get off my phone. If I'm speeding, it's going to tell me to slow down. But you still need to discipline, you still need to incentivize drivers. And that's really where the management piece comes in. We have to be reviewing the camera footage, we have to be reviewing the telematics data, and we have to be coaching. Without those things, there's pretty much no reason to have the telematics. So I would say to roll it out, it doesn't have to be a safety manager. If you have somebody on staff that you feel can do the managed reviews of the telematics and camera footage, that's good. Or obviously, your partners here at Keystone could help you too.
That's excellent. Keystone is the way to go. Amerisure is the way to go. I mean, if you're here, you're already looking at the best of the best, so don't look anywhere else. Um, Another question that came in is how should fleet managers introduce cameras to drivers so they see them as a benefit instead of a punishment? Marcus, you kind of addressed that already in the first question that you answered. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more with this one?
Yeah, so basically, and that's a great question, Miles, because we want to make sure anytime that there's a telematic device or a camera device put into these vehicles, remember these cabs are drivers spend more time in these cabs than they do at home, right? And so you never want to put something in someone's home that they don't know about. You never want to put something in someone's home that can be deemed as big brother, right? So you want to make sure that these devices that are put into the vehicles, that number one, the employee has knowledge of it, right? Number two, the employee is trained on how it's going to be used, right? That's the point. Number two is where a lot of companies get in trouble because they never explain to the employee how is this camera going to be used? Is it going to be used as a punitive measure? Is it going to be used to be big brother? Are you going to be listening to my conversations? That's the biggest thing that I get from drivers. I think this thing is, listen to everything I'm saying. And it's like, no, that's not what it's used for. And did anybody ever explain that to you? Well, no, my boss just threw it in the cab and said, use it. So making sure that we overcome those challenges from the front end to let people know that, hey, we can, do this together. We are learning the system together. We're going to use it to help you while you're driving, right? Because if you give me something that's going to help me drive better and more efficiently, then I'm going to use that tool versus, hey, I'm using this in case you get an accident, I'm going to use it against you, right? So making sure that everyone's on the same page, because again, the entire fleet needs to know how these devices are going to be used. Because if not, rumors get spread. One person likes it, another person don't. You have to put everyone in the room, explain why the cameras are going in, how it's going to help them, and how we're going to use it as a team going forward. And when you make those claims and you give that education in the beginning of getting these devices, it goes over a lot smoother in case something happens. And let's say that it's an accident that occurs that the driver is exonerated from because of the cameras. They think the camera is their best friend now. They think that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread because it helped me get out of a citation. It helped me from a claim standpoint. And it pretty much saved my life, right? You're going to use that every day. You're going to promote it. But in the beginning, it has to be taught. It has to be a piece of education that's a part of the fleet and ongoing, right? Say, for instance, you upgrade the cameras or change the cameras out. Then that re-education needs to occur at that point in time as well.
That's awesome, Marcus. Thank you. I love that comparison you made. You don't want to install something in someone's home, right? Without their knowledge. Communication is key. And we've recognized as well with fleets that we've met with is a very similar story. It's just all about communicating and explaining what's going on. It's here to help everybody be safe. It's here to help everybody be better. And there's fleet managers, at least to about the dozen that I've spoken with, they don't have the time to sit and watch everybody all day long and make sure you're doing the right thing and not doing what you're not supposed to. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Appreciate your answer. All right, we probably have time for one more question. I'll pass this one over to you, Michael. There's a lot of telematics providers out there. How do they choose the best one?
Well, when I get the question about this, which happens quite a bit, and that, to be honest with you, that's why we have the relationship we have now. This is going back to believe 2019 at this point. We were tasked with finding a partnership for telematics and camera providers. So we obviously went out to all the big ones that everybody's probably heard of, um, and some that people haven't heard of. GPS Insight was part of that process. We had several meetings. We had several people on those meetings to vet them. There was a lot of work that went into it, and GPS Insight is who we decided to partner with. You guys are not only our preferred vendor, but we do have a true partnership. And we truly do believe that it's the Cadillac service when it does come to telematics and cameras. Not only just the hardware with Netrodyne, but the software you guys have. For those of you on the call that have been in many different telematics systems, GPS Insight system is very user friendly. When you're putting reports out there, they're legitimate reports. They're not CSVs where it's just a spreadsheet and you really don't know what to do with it. It's very user friendly. So that's the biggest thing I would say that they need. Of course, I'm going to tell them to go with GPS Insight, but if they don't, you need to have something that's user friendly you're going to use and maximize the capability of the system. Because that's why you have it. And if you have it, might as well get the most out of it.
Thank you for that answer. Thank you for the plug and your honesty. And ultimately, to everybody who's been involved in our call today, we really appreciate your time, your knowledge, um, and to all of those who have been participating as viewers, we really appreciate you as well. Um, Anything else, team, before we sign off? Any final notes or thoughts? Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and sign us off. Thanks again for joining us today for our webinar.